The night descended in a velvet cloak of black, where thousands of stars shimmered like gateways to infinity. The silence was so deep it seemed one could hear the breath of the universe, a solemn rhythm older than time itself. Beneath that sky, a young soul sat quietly in the valley, eyes lifted upward, as if searching for something the mind could not name. A question rose from within the heart. Who is guiding this dance? Whose hand arranged the stars in perfect arcs, told the sea where to stop, and brought spring back after the cold? Is it an almighty being, or merely a craftsman lost within his own creation? In the gentle wind came an echo as ancient as forgotten philosophies. Demiurge, the creator, the one who shaped this material world. In ancient Greece, they called him the craftsman, the artisan of the cosmos. He made the mountains, the rivers, the body, and time itself, everything the eyes can see and the hands can touch. Yet the sages of Gnosis told another story. They said he was not the true God. He was a blind creator, unaware of the higher source of light. And in his ignorance, he formed a distorted world where light is imprisoned in material form. A thin mist drifted by, and the young soul felt a chilling truth run down his spine. If this world is only a copy, then where is reality? Above, the constellations seemed to move slowly. Perhaps they had always told this story, the tale of a universe made by an unknowing hand, and of souls seeking their way back to the light. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Psalm 19:1. The words of the psalm rang like a distant symphony, yet the soul soon realized, in the world of the Demiurge, that light is distorted, reflected through the fogged mirror of illusion. He looked around. Everything functioned too perfectly, too tightly, leaving no room for a free soul. The laws, the time, the space, all seemed like parts of a vast machine. He remembered his recurring dreams, the ones with endless roads that led nowhere, faces that changed, but eyes that stayed the same, empty and resigned. Was this the matrix of the Demiurge, where people believe they live, yet only repeat patterns designed by a blind creator? The wind rose, blowing strands of hair across his face. Within it, he heard a whisper, "Wake up. This reality is only a shadow." He did not know where the voice came from the earth, the sky, or from within himself. But it made his heart pound, as if an unseen door had just opened. He remembered childhood mornings, when he watched the sunrise and felt he belonged somewhere else, where light never faded and souls merged in harmony like a song. That memory had faded over the years, buried beneath rules, fears, and mechanical routines. But now it returned, clear and powerful, like a bell ringing in the night. Why did we forget who we are? He wondered. Why do we call chains freedom, call darkness light, and live as if the soul no longer matters? In that instant, he felt the world around him tremble. Not physically, but within awareness. The outlines of reality seemed to crack, revealing waves of unseen energy beneath. Everything lost its hardness and began to flow like light and sound. He saw it clearly. Every speck of dust, every breath, every thought was energy, all governed by some unseen order. A cold, structured order, like the invisible hand of the Demiurge holding it all. But at the edge of perception, he sensed something else. A softer, gentler light hidden behind all forms, a light not of this world. It stirred in his chest, like a small flame waiting to be awakened. He realized that while the Demiurge shaped the world from clay, the source planted divine sparks within it, our souls. Each person is a fragment of light buried in the soil, trying to remember itself. And the true journey is not to escape the world, but to see through it, to recognize that the light has never left. He stood up. The night sky turned transparent, like a mirror reflecting infinity. The stars seemed to gaze back at him, reminding him that the journey had just begun. Something older than language, deeper than faith, softly called his name. In that moment, a strange feeling spread through him, both fear and wonder. It was as if he stood between two worlds, one of familiar matter, the other an endless ocean of awareness. And somewhere in his mind, an old saying returned: "Whoever sees reality will never be the same again." The final breeze passed, carrying the scent of earth and young grass. He lifted his head and smiled faintly. Perhaps the answer was never among the stars, but within the heart itself, where both darkness and light dwell, waiting to be reconciled. The night went on, but something within his eyes had changed. He no longer looked at the sky as a distant mystery, but as a mirror of being. Every star above, every motion in space, whispered the same message. Remember who you are. In the distance, thunder rolled, then faded into silence. The sky remained vast, but the soul had set out on its way. The journey back to the source of light did not begin with a step, but with a vision. The vision that pierces the veil of illusion and reveals that we are not only observers of the universe, but part of the very hand that creates it. And in the stillness between two breaths, where the outer and inner worlds meet, a seed of awakening quietly sprouted. A long journey awaited, where every question would become a prayer, and every prayer would open a door to truth. As dawn rose, the first light of day slipped through layers of thin mist, touching the earth softly, like the hand of a craftsman testing his creation once more. The young soul opened his eyes, feeling the lingering chill in the air. The sun lifted above the far horizon, golden and silent, as if unaware it was warming a world veiled in illusion. Everything around him, the stones, the stream, the wild grass, all seemed strangely alive. Yet within that life there was something rigid, as if every detail had been arranged by a mechanical hand. Each time the wind blew, the leaves trembled in perfect rhythm, never missing a beat. Everything operated with such flawless precision it felt cold, as if freedom itself had been programmed within unseen limits. He realized this world was beautiful, but not natural. Beautiful like a carefully painted picture, yet lacking a soul. In the days that followed, he wandered across many lands, watching people live and breathe. They smiled, they worked, they loved and feared, but in their eyes there was always a dull haze, a quiet forgetting. He heard them speak of rules, morals, and doctrines. They spoke of God, yet the God they described seemed too much like the Demiurge, strict, limited, and demanding obedience. He wondered, had the Demiurge clothed himself in the garment of God so that mankind believed they were worshiping the light while bowing before its shadow? The wind blew again, this time carrying the scent of smoke and earth. In a small village, he stopped by a fire and looked at the faces gathered around, the old, the young, all busy yet lifeless. They spoke of harvests, of luck and misfortune, but no one spoke of the soul. No one asked who they were, where they came from, or where they would go. It seemed they had accepted this world as everything, accepted impermanence as destiny, not realizing that destiny itself was shaped by a blind creator. He remembered the whisper from the night before, "Wake up. This reality is only a shadow," and a deep sadness spread in his heart. He looked into the eyes of a child and saw innocence, but not light. It seemed that when human souls fell into this world, they forgot their true essence. They no longer knew they once came from another place, where light was undivided, where time did not exist, where every soul was one with the source. He closed his eyes gently and whispered a silent prayer. "If there is a way home, please show me." His words did not escape into sound, yet the space around him seemed to listen. A soft warmth began to spread, light as breath, and in that stillness, a verse from the Psalms surfaced within his consciousness. "The Lord confides in those who fear him." Psalm 25-14. The words made his heart tremble. Could it be that this covenant was the slender thread leading us out of the maze of the Demiurge? He opened his eyes and saw that the world was no longer quite the same. Beneath the familiar shapes of matter, he began to sense faint waves of energy. The buildings, the trees, even the people, all emitted different frequencies of vibration, some bright, some dim. He understood that this world was not only matter, but condensed energy existing in the lowest layer of the universe. And if that energy was controlled or distorted, the entire reality would become a prison for consciousness. In his dreams, he began to find himself lost in corridors without windows. The echo of machinery filled the air, and every door he opened led him back to where he started. In the center of that maze, a deep voice spoke. "You will never leave, because you believe this is home." He awoke in terror, his heart racing. Could that have been the voice of the Demiurge? The next day, he stood atop a hill, gazing down at the world spread out like a great tapestry. Everything moved as usual. The sun rose, birds flew, people hurried about, yet he sensed it clearly. All this was only the first layer of reality. like water reflecting a false sky. Beneath, where true light lay hidden, was the real source. He realized that this world was not evil. It was only incomplete, a dim reflection of a purer reality. And within that imperfection was an invitation, calling humanity to seek, to question, and to reach toward the light. Every pain, every loss, every tear was a reminder from the source. You are not home yet. Keep going. He walked beside a stream, watching the water carry fallen leaves. The clear surface reflected the sky. He saw his own image there, a small being lost within the mirror of the universe. Who am I in this painting? He wondered. The character or the painter? The question lingered in the air, then dissolved into the murmur of the stream. Inside him, another voice rose, softer, deeper, as if from the soul itself. You are both. You were born within the painting, yet you are also the light shining upon the canvas. He sat by the water, feeling warm sunlight touch his face. The world might be an illusion, but within illusion there was beauty. The beauty of the journey back to truth. The Demiurge may have built the cage, yet within it the source had lit a candle, the candle of awareness. He understood that to find that light again, one cannot run away from the world. One must look deeply into it, see through the layers of deception, and walk through them. Like a jeweler polishing a stone until its inner light shines through, the soul must refine itself within the challenges of reality. Evening came. The golden light faded slowly, giving way to streaks of red like blood. He looked at that sight and felt a strange harmony between beauty and pain, between light and shadow. Perhaps this world exists so that we may learn to love both, for only by understanding the darkness can we truly cherish the light. He smiled faintly. In the wind, it seemed the voice of the earth and sky whispered, "Do not fear this world. It is only the mirror of your own being. When you remember the light within you, the mirror will change." In the sky, the first stars began to appear. He lifted his head and felt a warmth in his chest, small yet real. He knew the journey was not over. The Demiurge might still be watching from afar, but now the soul was awake. And once awakened, nothing could ever return it to the old dream again. That night, as the wind flowed down from distant mountains, the young soul sat by the stream, eyes following the water, reflecting the moonlight. Each ripple seemed to stir an ancient memory within him, a memory of a radiant realm unbound, where every soul once sang in the frequency of love. From that deep place, a faint sound arose, not in words, but in feeling, a gentle calling. Come home. In that moment, he understood that the journey did not lead outward, but inward. For Pleroma, the realm of pure light, was not found at the edge of the universe, but within the heart of one who longs to return. Whenever a person stops chasing the noise of the world and begins to listen to the silent rhythm within, that door begins to open. Yet to pass through it requires courage to let go, to release the illusions of ego, of power, of control, and the nameless fear that the Demiurge had sown in humanity since the dawn of time. He watched the shimmering reflections on the water and wondered how many other souls were trapped in the cycle of the material world, forgetting they were light. He saw them every day, people rushing towards success, status, and fame, as if those were the only paths to existence. But the faster they ran, the farther they drifted from themselves. Like moths drawn to false flames, they burned bright for a moment, then turned to ash. A cool breeze passed, carrying the scent of wild grass. He closed his eyes and whispered, "How can I remember?" The answer came not as sound, but as stillness. Within that stillness, Psalm 37:4 appeared as if written in light. "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." The verse did not speak of rewards from the outside, but of the joy of a soul reunited with its source. He opened his eyes and saw the moon high above, shining on the narrow path leading back to the valley. With every step he took, the earth seemed to echo a new rhythm, deeper, steadier, as if the planet itself was walking with him on his path of awakening. He realized that no step was ever random, that every action, every thought was part of the cosmic dance the soul was learning once more. At dawn, he stopped by an ancient temple covered in moss. Inside remained only a cracked statue of an unnamed god. Light streamed through the broken roof, forming a single beam amid the shadows. He knelt, not to beg, but to listen. In that silence, and understanding began to form. This world is not a punishment, but a lesson, not a hell, but a classroom. And even the Demiurge, though blind, was a tool for awakening, for without his darkness, light would never be known. He looked up at the stone figure and smiled softly. Perhaps every pain a human endures is an invitation. Every disappointment, loss, or collapse is a sign that the soul is being called home. Only when what is outside breaks can the inner light begin to shine through. He stepped out of the temple. The sky was an almost unreal blue. Clouds drifted slowly, like souls traveling through realms of space. In that moment, he felt he was no longer alone. Countless other souls were walking the same path, each in their own way, some through meditation, some through suffering, some through love. All were returning to the same light. He spoke quietly, as if to those who might be listening. If you feel lost, do not be afraid. No one is ever truly lost on the journey home. All you need to do is stop, take a deep breath, and feel the light within your heart, and you have already begun to return. If these words warm your heart, share the light. Let a small act, a share, a comment, or a prayer become a spark that spreads through the night. For sometimes, a single candle is enough to lead another out of darkness. He kept walking. The path led through golden fields, where the wind sang songs of freedom. Every stalk of grain shimmered like a blessing. Every gust of wind, a reminder that the journey was never lonely. All souls were connected by an invisible thread of light. Within that connection, fear faded, replaced by a quiet peace. He thought of those he had met, the thoughtful faces, the lost eyes, and silently wished they too would find their way. He knew no one could be forced to awaken, for awakening was not knowledge taught, but a seed that blossoms in its season. Yet he believed every soul carried that flame within, waiting for a breath of wind to ignite it. Evening descended. The last sunlight painted the valley gold. He stopped and watched the sun sink behind the mountains. A tear slipped down, not of sorrow, but of understanding. He knew he was not yet home, but at least he knew the way. And that path did not lead upward to the sky, but downward into the depths of the soul. When night fell, the heavens once again shone with countless stars. He sat down, closed his eyes, and let his breath merge with the wind. In the vast stillness, his soul began to hear the heartbeat of the universe, slow, round, eternal. A sacred feeling spread through him, as if someone placed a hand on his shoulder and whispered, "You were never abandoned." Those words made him smile through his tears. He knew that Pleroma had begun to appear, not as a place to reach, but as a state of being returning home. High above, a star fell, leaving a trail of light across the sky. The young soul watched it and whispered softly, "Thank you." And in the depth of night, where all the world's noise faded away, only one rhythm remained, the rhythm of true life, the beginning of a long journey toward the light within. Night after night, the young soul's journey went deeper into the shadowed layers of awareness. One morning, while the mist still clung to the grass, he stopped before a strange cliff carved with ancient symbols that no ordinary eye could understand. Sunlight reflected across the markings, scattering into shimmering fragments like pieces of mirrored glass. And when he placed his hand on the cold stone, a wave of images flooded his mind. He saw another world, radiant, vast, and filled with light. Pure beings sang within the brilliance of the invisible Creator. But at the edge of that light, one being drifted away, a curious soul longing to create on its own. It looked into the void and said, "I will make a world of my own." From that desire, the Demiurge was born. He gathered stardust, shaped it into earth, breathed false life into it, and called it creation. He proclaimed himself God, believing he was the source of all things, not realizing the light he used was only a fragment of something greater. The vision faded, and he stood frozen, heart pounding. A feeling of sorrow and unease filled him. The Demiurge was not merely a blind creator, but a being torn from its source of light, like a child lost from its mother in the night, building a world to comfort itself. In that endless loneliness, he made humankind, hoping to see the reflection of light in their eyes. But when the reflection did not return, jealousy grew within him. He sought to rule, to possess, to imprison souls in matter, so none could escape his dominion. The young soul whispered, "Is he the enemy, or just a mirror of ourselves?" In the wind came an answer, both. For the Demiurge is the symbol of ignorance within every soul, the part that believes it is separate, that craves control, and forgets the love of the source. When humans rage, when they fear, when they place themselves above others, they are recreating the hand of the Demiurge. He sat down, feeling the weight in his heart. The world unfolded before him like a maze built from human fear. People worshipped powerful gods, not knowing they were feeding the shadow of the blind creator. They built laws, wars, systems of control, believing them divine order, when in truth, they were only reflections of a consciousness that had forgotten the true light. I have said, "You are gods. You are all sons of the Most High." Psalm 82:6. The words rang through his mind like a bell across the valley. If humanity is truly born of light, why do they bow to darkness? He realized the problem was never the existence of the Demiurge, but that humanity had forgotten who they are. A flash of light appeared before his eyes. The symbols on the rock shifted into the number 111, glowing like gold. His heart trembled, and a voice rose within. This is the mark of beginning. When you see 111, know the door is opening. He understood. 111 was the sign of new creation, the number of consciousness rising to a higher plane. 3 ones standing side by side like pillars of light, representing body, mind, and spirit aligned, ready to cross the threshold of awakening. It was an invitation for the soul to begin shaping its own reality, instead of living within the illusion of the Demiurge. He stood, filled with a surge of new energy. Perhaps the world was not merely the playground of a flawed creator, but the stage where souls learn to co-create with the source. The Demiurge could not be destroyed, but he could be transcended through awareness. When humanity remembers the light within, his power dissolves like darkness before dawn. He looked around. The sky was still the same, yet somehow everything felt changed. Every detail shimmered with new depth, as if each grain of dust reflected a fragment of divine light. He understood then, the light of the source had never vanished, only hidden beneath the dust of ignorance. The path of awakening was the path of clearing that dust away. A thought rose gently. If the Demiurge is only a mirror, then when I look into it, I am seeing the part of myself that needs healing. With that realization, fear and anger faded. Only compassion remained, for humanity and even for the blind creator himself. For in truth, he too was a soul searching for the light it had lost. As he continued on his way, the wind grew stronger, but he did not shrink back. Each gust felt like an unseen hand testing his courage, and each step made him steadier. Within, he whispered a prayer. Let me see the truth, even if it breaks me. By nightfall, the stars appeared again, silent and distant. He sat and listened to the wind whistling through the rocks. A voice echoed softly from nowhere. Do not fear the darkness, for within it, light takes form. He understood. It was not a warning, but encouragement. Only when the soul dares to look into the dark can it discover its true nature. He looked to the sky and whispered, if the Demiurge is ignorance, then the light within me is the answer. And in that instant, something extraordinary happened. The stars above aligned into a straight line, 3 brilliant points shining side by side, exactly like the number 111 that had appeared on the stone. He held his breath, his heart full of awe. Perhaps the universe was responding. Perhaps the true journey had begun. He smiled, closed his eyes, and let the light move within him. Deep inside, he heard the voice of the source whisper, do not fight the world, rise above it. And so, in the darkness of night, a small flame was kindled in the heart of that soul, the flame of awareness, of beginning of the sacred number 111, glowing like a divine seal on the path back to the light. The next dawn came softly, like the breath of the earth. Light filtered through the leaves, touching the dew-covered ground, and in that pale golden glow, the young soul walked on, heart filled with calm. Each step he took seemed to merge with the rhythm of the world, no longer resisting, but gently understanding. He had stopped fearing the Demiurge, stopped seeing him as an enemy, and began to recognize within his darkness the reflection of himself, the ignorance that every soul must face in order to return whole. Along the stony path, the wind carried the scent of soil, wildflowers, and passing rain. He realized that everything in this world, though shaped by the Demiurge, still held a deep kind of beauty. For in every grain of sand, every gust of wind, the light of the source still glimmered. Perhaps Even within the hand of the blind creator, the source had left a trace, like a hidden smile behind the theater of control. The young soul remembered the people he had met along the way, the cold eyes, the lifeless faces. He had once judged them, believing they were lost, trapped in illusion. But now he understood. They too were walking their own path, just as he was. Perhaps they were not asleep because they refused to awaken, but because their time had not yet come. Awakening, he saw, could never be forced. It was like a flower, opening only when the sun arrived at the right hour. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1 echoed in his mind, a reminder of courage and release. Light never fights darkness. It simply shines, and the darkness fades. He understood that forgiveness was not acceptance of wrong, but liberation from the chains of resentment, the invisible bonds the Demiurge always sought to tighten around the human heart. He sat upon the hillside and watched the rising Sunday. The golden light poured over the grass, his shoulders, his face. He whispered, "I forgive you, Demiurge." The wind answered with a soft rustle, as if the universe itself smiled. In that moment, something wondrous happened. Space seemed to expand, growing light and almost transparent. He felt himself dissolve into the light, becoming one with it. Every breath he took merged with the breath of the earth and sky, and he knew he had touched true peace. Yet, as that peace spread through him, another part began to tremble. The small part, still afraid, still doubting, still unsure it deserved the light. He saw clearly the two halves within him, one awakened, one still dreaming. And in that silent dialogue, he understood. This is the nature of being human, both divine and dust. He realized that awakening was not a leap away from the world, but a reconciliation with it. Darkness did not need to be destroyed, only seen. Ignorance did not need to be condemned, only understood. And when the light of understanding spreads, all things return to harmony. The wind grew stronger. From afar, the sky darkened, clouds swirling like smoke. A storm was coming. He watched it unfold and did not run. The storm was no longer a symbol of destruction, but a baptism of the soul, cleansing the old to make room for rebirth. He stood in the wind, eyes closed, arms wide, feeling the first drops of rain touch his skin like blessings. The rain poured down, washing dust from the ground, from the grass, from human hearts. Amid the thunder's roar, he could hear the powerful beat of his own heart. And within the storm, a truth echoed like revelation. The Demiurge does not exist outside. He lives within the consciousness of every soul. When we look at the darkness of the world, we are gazing into the ignorance within ourselves. And only by loving that part can we become whole. The storm passed, leaving behind a clear sky. The sun emerged from behind the clouds, and across the horizon a rainbow appeared, radiant and pure. He smiled, knowing he had crossed a threshold. No more fear, only gratitude. Gratitude even for the darkness, for without it, light would have no meaning. He sat quietly, his heart overflowing with peace. Each breath became a prayer, each glance a blessing for the world. For now he knew the world does not need to be destroyed, only seen with new eyes. And those eyes, the ones that understand that light is not something to seek outside, but something shining from within, are the eyes of freedom. Above him, the sun rose higher, dazzlingly bright. The raindrops left on the leaves sparkled like countless tiny diamonds. He looked at the scene and understood that everything, light and darkness, fear and courage, were all parts of the same whole. Everything that happens is part of the soul's evolution, and nothing is meaningless. He spoke softly, almost in a whisper. "Thank you, Demiurge. Without you, I would not have learned the way home." In the stillness, it seemed the earth and sky answered with deep silence. He felt a new strength rising within him, not the strength of control, but of freedom, faith, and love. His steps continued toward the horizon, where the light was breaking into countless shards. And within that light, the young soul understood that the journey was never about finding the light somewhere else, but about learning to become the light. The path led the young soul to a land of gray stone, where cold mountains rose like the pillars of heaven. No grass, no song of birds, only rock, wind, and time. Each step he took echoed through the hollow valley, a heavy rhythm, like an ancient drum. He knew he had reached the threshold of another lesson. Saturn, the stern teacher of karma, order, and trial. Legend said that Saturn was once the god of harvest and time, the keeper of the cosmic clock. But within the realm of the Demiurge, his image had been distorted into a symbol of restriction and bondage. Saturn taught humanity the law of cause and effect, the price of every action, and the cycles each soul must pass through to grow. No soul could escape him, for he was the heartbeat of time, the measure of every lesson the soul had sown. The young soul stopped before a cliff and saw a massive stone shaped like a circle, like the great ring of Saturn. Within that ring, the wind swirled, carrying whispers of countless souls who had passed before. Time punishes no one. It only reflects all things. A shiver ran through him. Perhaps every pain endured, every scar of the past, was not punishment, but a mirror. An image appeared in his mind. Mistakes, anger, words left unforgiven. They drifted before his eyes like scenes from a slow-moving film. He wanted to turn away, but a deep voice spoke, solemn and steady. Look directly at them. This is not your past. These are pieces of your soul. He bowed his head, tears falling to the ground. All this time, he had believed that the spiritual path was an ascent, a movement toward light, toward purity. But now Saturn taught him that to truly rise, one must first bow, look back at the parts once denied. Forgiving others was easier than forgiving oneself, and that was Saturn's lesson. There is no freedom without reconciliation with the past. A fine mist began to fall. Above, the sun was hidden behind thick gray clouds. He felt the weight of time upon his shoulders, not as chains, but as the sacred cloak of maturity. He lifted his gaze into the vast dimness and whispered a verse. Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Psalm 90:1. The words rang in his heart like a calming hymn, reminding him that no matter how many ages pass, the soul is held by the unchanging source. When his tears had dried, he noticed the wind around him grow gentle. The clouds parted, revealing the faint light of dusk. Across the sky, 3 thin streaks of light appeared, side by side, glowing gold. 222. His heart filled with a strange warmth, peace, and the sense of being guided. 222. The mark of harmony and companionship. It spoke not of solitude, but of connection. It reminded him that even in the hardest journeys, there were always other souls walking beside him, even if unseen. Perhaps a friend, long gone, a teacher once met, or souls he had never known, but who sent their quiet energy of support. 222 whispered, "You are not alone." He watched the numbers fade into the clouds, his heart full of faith. Even in Saturn's stern lessons, love was present. Silent as the breath of the universe, he spoke softly, as if to those who might be listening. If you are also seeing the number 222 around you, it is the universe reminding you to stay in balance. You are not walking alone. Believe that light walks beside you, even if your eyes cannot see it. Let this number be the seal of faith. Night descended. The stars began to shine, but they were not cold. Their glow was gentle, like the invisible whispers. Everything that happens is needed. He sat on a stone, listening to the wind pass through. The wind seemed to tell stories of souls who had walked this same path, who had fallen, risen, and learned to love even their own stumbling. Saturn no longer seemed like a fearsome god. In the moonlight, he appeared as an old teacher with eyes of deep understanding. He did not punish, he revealed. He taught the young soul that time was not an enemy, but a companion. For only time allows the soul to mature. Only time lets darkness dissolve in the light of awareness. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Before him appeared rings of light, like the rings of Saturn, soft and warm. Each ring was a cycle of life, a lesson, a chapter of the soul. He realized that instead of fearing these cycles, one could walk through them consciously, like a musician moving with the rhythm. Knowing each beat has its reason to exist, he whispered, almost in prayer. Thank you, Saturn. Thank you for the lessons within pain. Thank you for reminding me that every limit is a doorway, if I have the patience to see it. A flash lit up the eastern sky, but there was no thunder. The light cut through the night, illuminating his face, calm and free. He knew Saturn's lesson would not end in a single moment, but would continue throughout his journey, teaching him to balance light and shadow, action and surrender, humanity and spirit. The last wind swept by, carrying the warmth of a new beginning. The young soul stood, gazing at the sky, where the number 222 had disappeared. He no longer needed to see it, for its seal was now carved within his heart. A faint smile appeared on his lips. Ahead, the road would still hold darkness and challenge, but he no longer feared. He knew that within every cycle, there is love. Within every constraint, freedom is forming. And within each turn of time, an unseen hand is guiding. He walked on, light as the wind. On the horizon, a pale blue glow began to rise, a promise of a new chapter, where the illusions of the Demiurge would begin to reveal their most intricate form, the Matrix. But now, the soul was strong enough to face it, and awake enough to see through it. As the young soul left the mountains of Saturn, the path opened before him like a flowing stream of light, winding through space. Ahead stretched a vast plain, yet there was no wind, no sound. Everything was so still it seemed as though time itself had stopped. He walked forward and noticed that with every step, a faint trail of light followed him, proof that his energy was radiating outward, interacting with the fabric of reality. Then suddenly, the sky turned silver, and the ground beneath his feet became glass. Another world unfolded before him, radiant, flawless, arranged with impossible precision. For a moment, he felt as if he had stepped inside a mirror. Everything looked real, yet when he touched it, it was cold and hollow. A voice rang out, deep and metallic. "Welcome to the Matrix." He turned, but no one was there. The voice was not coming from the air, but from within his mind. The pillars of light around him shifted into human forms, their faces expressionless, their eyes empty. They laughed, worked, loved, and hated, but it was all mechanical, not a single true feeling, not a single true soul. The world ran perfectly because everything was under control. He walked through the crowd, his heart heavy. They did not know their energy was being drained little by little, not from their bodies, but from their emotions. Every fear, every anger, every tear was harvested by unseen layers of power. The Demiurge no longer needed chains of steel. He used the human mind itself as the prison. He had built a reality so refined that no one questioned it. A world where souls willingly confined themselves through belief. He realized the Matrix was not outside. It lived within each person, within habits, reactions, and fears disguised as truth. It lived in the belief that happiness comes only from having enough, that love must be earned through struggle, that one is never enough. Those beliefs fed the Demiurge, keeping humanity caught in the loop. A surge of anger rose in him. He wanted to scream, to shatter the walls of cold light, to awaken those empty faces. But he stopped. In that moment, he remembered Saturn's lesson balance, forgiveness, and the knowing that darkness cannot be defeated by darkness. The only way to break the Matrix was to see through it. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, letting his breath sink with the rhythm of the earth. In the silence, Psalm 119 to 105 echoed within him like a bell inside the maze. "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." He whispered the verse like a mantra, and within his awareness, something miraculous began to happen. The world around him trembled. The buildings, the people, the sounds shimmered, then melted away like smoke. He opened his eyes. The world was now only light and flowing energy. He saw golden threads weaving together, the very structure of the Matrix. Each thread represented an idea: fear, desire, control, guilt, hope. The entire world was woven from these ideas, and at the center of that web pulsed a dark sphere of light, the heart of the Demiurge. From that sphere came a voice, gentle yet deceitful. "I am not your enemy. I am you. Without me, you would cease to exist." He froze. There was truth in those words. The Demiurge was the ego within every soul, the part that seeks control, that fears loss. To destroy it would mean dissolution, but to believe it entirely would mean eternal bondage. He gazed deeply into the dark heart, then placed his hand over his own chest. "You are right," he whispered. "You are part of me, but you are not all of me." As the words left his lips, a white light burst from his heart, spreading through the entire Matrix. The threads of energy trembled, some snapping, others turning color. In that brilliance, he saw countless other souls awakening one by one, some through tears, some through meditation, some through a simple moment of awareness. With every awakening, the Matrix lost another link in its chain. He understood this was the true path, not destruction, but transformation. For as human consciousness evolves, the Matrix evolves too. He saw clearly that every act of love, every sincere thought, every moment of forgiveness created cracks in the walls of illusion. He smiled softly and spoke not to anyone, but to everyone. If you are hearing this, know that you are not trapped. You have only forgotten. The moment you choose love over fear, you begin to rewrite the Matrix. And every awakened heart becomes a lantern lighting the way for thousands more. The layers of light around him slowly faded, revealing the true night sky, vast, deep, and calm. He sat down, feeling real earth beneath his feet, real wind on his face. The world was not perfect, but it was alive, and that was enough. In the silence, he heard a whisper from far beyond. "You have seen the truth." "But the journey is not over," he answered quietly. "I know. But this time, I will not walk alone." For now the soul understood. The truth was not outside the Matrix, but within the awareness of each being. The Demiurge might rule the world, but he could never rule a heart that knows love. And as long as one heart remains shining, there will always be a crack in the Matrix, a passage where light can enter. After stepping out from the illusion of the Matrix, the young soul stopped upon an open plain. There was nothing around him but infinite space. No sky, no ground, only stillness, a realm suspended between two worlds. Everything was both clear and uncertain, as if reality itself waited to be shaped by the mind that beheld it. He knew this was the middle realm, the threshold where all illusions must be revealed before a soul could cross into what is real. A gentle light descended, not from the sun, but from an unseen source. Within it, he heard a familiar voice, soft as wind, yet echoing from beyond time. "You have seen the prison, now see the walls." The words made his heart tremble. Perhaps the Matrix was only the outer shell, and within it were subtler illusions, invisible chains that humanity bound upon itself through belief and emotion. He sat down, closed his eyes, and let the light guide him. In his mind, 3 images appeared, slow and vivid, like veils being lifted one by one. The first veil, the illusion of time. Before him stood a vast clock, its hands spinning endlessly, each tick echoing like the breath of the world. Every sound of its motion pulled people farther from the present, trapping them between regret for what was and fear for what might come. He saw millions of souls chasing tomorrow, believing happiness would arrive with their next achievement, never realizing it was all an illusion. Time was not real. It was the movement of perception within the Matrix. Then he heard a voice whisper, "I created time so that you would forget you are eternal." He understood then that time was the first weapon of the Demiurge, the way he separated souls from the present moment where the source truly lives. The second veil, the illusion of matter. The next image emerged, cities of gold, jewels shining bright, human hands reaching endlessly but never touching. Matter, the thing humanity called real, safe, and valuable. Yet when he approached, everything dissolved into sand. He realized that the body, possessions, even the self, were temporary shells designed to hide the light within. The Demiurge had crafted a world where people defined themselves by what they owned, so that when they lost it, they believed they had lost themselves. But the soul, the spark of Pleroma, could never be destroyed. It only slept, waiting to awaken. The third veil, the illusion of energy chains. The final vision made him shiver. Before him stretched a massive web of glowing threads, interwoven like a net, and upon it were millions of points of light, human souls. From each flowed streams of emotional energy, gathering into a dense, dark core, pulsing like the heart of an unseen being. He understood this was the soul energy network the sages once spoke of, where human emotion was harvested, where fear, anger, and envy became nourishment for the Demiurge and his servants. The more afraid people were, the weaker they became. The more they loved, the freer they grew. The images faded, and he opened his eyes, his forehead wet with cold sweat. The sky before him glowed, as if lit from within. He breathed deeply, feeling something shift inside his heart. Every illusion had been stripped away, and the emptiness left behind was now filled with a pure, gentle energy. He realized there was no need to fight illusions. To see them clearly was enough for them to dissolve. Above him, numbers appeared across the sky. 3 bright figures, 333, shining before fading into the air. Warmth spread through his body. He knew this was the seal of divine guidance. 333 represented the unity of body, mind, and spirit, a reminder that angelic light was near, guiding any soul brave enough to face the truth. A tender voice spoke again. When you see 333, remember you are never alone. Light lives in every cell, every breath, and your task is not only to awaken, but to help others see. He looked up at the sky where the numbers had vanished and whispered, "If someone is hearing this and sees this number in their life, it is a sign. Share it. Let your inner light speak." 333 is not just a number. It is an invitation from the higher realms, reminding you that you are being guided. A warm breeze passed by, and for the first time, he felt no fear. He understood that every energy in the universe, bright or dark, followed a single law. What you focus on expands. If you look through the eyes of love, the world reshapes itself to reflect that love. If you look through fear, the matrix builds more walls. Everything depends on choice. Then an ancient verse rose within him. He will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Psalm 91:11. The words arrived gently, a blessing for a soul that had crossed the realm of illusion. He smiled, tears falling, but they were not tears of sorrow, they were gratitude. Before him, the world began to move again. Wind rose, carrying the scent of living earth and real water. Everything returned to normal, yet nothing was the same. For now, the soul could see through it all. He saw the world as a cosmic song, where even the Demiurge was just a low note, while love was the endless melody that held everything together. The light within his heart grew brighter, expanding outward to merge with the sky. He knew the journey was not over. Ahead lay a longer road, the path toward Pleroma, the realm of pure light, unshrouded by shadow. But this time, he walked not with fear, but with joy, for he understood at last, illusion is not the enemy, but the teacher. And when the lesson is received with gratitude, illusion fades away, like mist at dawn. The sky slowly opened after the long night. The first light of dawn came like a living breath, gliding softly across the skin, through every cell, awakening the parts of the soul that had long been asleep. The young soul stood within the vast stillness where all boundaries had just dissolved and felt something wondrous. No more separation between himself and the world. Everything beat to the same rhythm. The wind, the heartbeat, the currents of light flowing through space. He had walked through darkness, seen the illusions, and touched the root of fear. And now, as the first breath of a new day swept in, he realized that liberation was never about escaping the world, but about seeing it through different eyes. The Matrix still existed. The Demiurge still existed. But they had no power left once the soul remembered its nature as light. He bowed his head, silently thanking the shadows that had once made him fall, for they were the soil where light had grown. The journey was no longer about running away, but about returning to life, to people, to each breath, but with an awakened consciousness. A gentle wind passed, carrying the still echo of a sacred verse. "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. The words flowed through him like cool water, and he closed his eyes. This stillness was not emptiness, but the space where the source dwelled. In that silence, every worry, every noise of the mind dissolved. He could feel the rhythm of the universe resonating within himself. He understood that liberation was not the destruction of all structures, but awareness within them. Amid work, words, love, and fear, one could still awaken. Every moment could become a doorway. When awareness opened, every action became sacred. He looked down at his hands. Once they had trembled with fear, now they were the same hands, but the light was different. Every movement, even the smallest, carried creative power, for he now knew that human beings were not mere witnesses to the cosmic play, but co-creators. Every thought, every word, every emotion was a seed sown into the field of energy. The world did not happen to us. It reflected us. The young soul began to walk, not toward any place in particular. The road stretched ahead in golden light, the ground warm beneath his feet, the wind gentle through his hair. Each step was a prayer, each breath a song. He remembered those who had walked with him, the eyes, the stories, the meetings that once seemed accidental but were threads of destiny. He understood now that no one truly walks alone. All souls are linked in an unseen web of light, learning, remembering, returning together. Above, white clouds drifted slowly. They changed form, from bird to dragon, then into a radiant circle. He felt a message flow through him. Freedom is not leaving the world, but flying within it. Freedom is the ability to live among all limits, without being consumed by them. To dare to feel, to love, to be fully present, without fear's control. He stopped atop a hill and looked down at the green valley below. There, people worked, laughed, loved, argued all the ordinary acts of life. But this time, he did not see them as asleep. He saw within each of them the spark of Pleroma, waiting to be remembered. He spoke softly, as if to them and to anyone who might hear. Awakening does not mean leaving life, but living fully within it, with eyes that have opened. A vast love rose within him, boundless and without condition. The world, with all its chaos and beauty, became a single song, the source learning to recognize itself through every soul. He understood now that liberation is an act of creation, turning each moment into the revelation of love. The world does not need another war between darkness and light, but hearts that carry light into darkness with kindness. Each time someone chooses love over judgment, silence over fear, the matrix trembles a little more. He lifted his head. Sunlight poured straight into his eyes, and tears began to fall. In those tears, he saw his own reflection, small, fragile, yet shining. The Demiurge could build endless layers of illusion, but he could never touch a soul that knows how to love. From within, a whisper arose, not from beyond, but from the source inside him. You walk through darkness not to flee from it, but to illuminate it. Live with awareness, and every day will be a small heaven. He knelt, placing his hands upon the earth. Warm energy rose from the ground into his body, like a blessing. All fear melted away, leaving only deep gratitude. Everything felt simple again. The breath, the sun, the soil, the people, the song of birds. All of it was the expression of a nameless love. He whispered, his voice as soft as wind. I no longer wish to escape the world. I wish to love it until it no longer needs its chains. In that moment, the young soul became one with the song of the universe. He understood that freedom did not come from breaking the matrix, but from awakening within it. And when that happens, even the matrix transforms from prison into sanctuary, a temple for the maturing soul. Light spread across the sky, reflected in his eyes. A new era was beginning where humanity lives with awareness, creates through love, and walks the earth in peace. The sky stretched endlessly, glowing like golden silk being lifted from the earth. The wind swept over the rolling fields, carrying the scent of life. The young soul stood atop the hill where his journey had begun, but the world before him was no longer the same. Everything was still there: the trees, the river, the shimmer of dawn, yet through his new eyes, everything seemed to breathe together, bound by invisible threads of consciousness. There was no longer I and the world. There was only one heartbeat, the pulse of the source living through every form. He closed his eyes and released his breath slowly. Memories drifted through him like distant dreams. That first night beneath the Valley of Stars, the shadow of the Demiurge, the icy ring of Saturn, the radiant light of 333 inches, the void. None of these were trials anymore, but melodies in the great symphony of awakening. He understood now that there had never been a force against him, only lessons guiding him home. Above, the clouds thinned, revealing a transparent sky. Streams of light poured down like golden threads. In that light, he felt a presence, formless, nameless, yet alive in every grain of dust around him. It did not speak, but the soul understood. It was the source, the invisible one, who had always been there, watching, embracing, waiting. A deep peace spread outward from within, dissolving every border between body and sky. He realized he was not a soul seeking God, he was God, remembering himself through this small human form. An ancient verse rose softly in his heart, like a farewell to the journey. Know that the Lord is God. It is He who made us, and we belong to Him. Psalm 100:3. The words were no longer doctrine. They were truth etched into every cell. We were never lost children, only mirrors reflecting the eternal light. He opened his eyes. In the distance, the world still moved. People walking, crying, laughing, loving. But now he saw something sacred in every motion. Even the smallest, simplest act shimmered with light. Every soul, asleep or awake, was being guided by the same great river. No one was left behind. No one was truly lost. He began walking down the hill. Beneath his feet, wildflowers bloomed in the warmth of the morning Sunday. Each step felt like a blessing. Each breath filled with quiet grace. He smiled and whispered, "All is one, and I am within all." A soft glow surrounded him, warm as the embrace of the universe. Within that light, he saw countless faceless souls who had walked beside him along the way. They smiled silently, their eyes shining with love. Some were familiar from this life, others from lifetimes long forgotten. All merged into one radiant current of light. The sky deepened into shades of sapphire. In the wind, he heard the faint whisper of the Demiurge, no longer proud, but calm and sorrowful. "Now I see, the light never left me, I only turned away." The young soul looked upward and whispered in reply, "And now, you too are returning." There was no anger in his voice, only compassion, for he understood that when one soul awakens, the whole of creation begins to heal. In the east, the sun rose higher. Light spread over the mountains, rivers, and his face. For the first time, he felt that the light did not come from above, but from within his own heart. It was not a fire that burned, but a steady, gentle radiance, the light of unconditional love, the love from which the universe itself was born. He stopped and looked directly at the Sunday. His eyes did not flinch. In that brightness, all forms dissolved. He saw only pure energy, the current of creation and love. And at its center, his soul merged, not disappearing, but expanding into infinity. In that boundless awareness, a clear understanding arose. Escaping the matrix was never about going anywhere. It was remembering you were never trapped. At that realization, all questions, doubts, and fears vanished like mist. What remained was stillness, a peace beyond all words. The world, with all its pain and contradiction, now appeared perfect, for he saw that every crack in the darkness was a window for light to enter. A gentle wave of energy surrounded him, lifting him softly into the air. Below, the earth unfolded fields stretching, rivers winding, people living, loving, and dreaming. He smiled, knowing they too were on their way home. Even if they did not yet know it, his voice joined the wind, carried to them and to anyone who was listening. We have never been lost. We are all returning home, no matter which path we walk. Remember, the light is not somewhere far away. It is in your gaze, your breath, your compassion. In every moment you choose love over fear. Let this story be your reminder. Let the light rise where you stand. He paused, whispering one final blessing for all who were listening. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and grant you peace. Numbers 6:26. A quiet stillness followed. Then came the sound of wind singing, mingling with birds and the breath of the earth. He closed his eyes and smiled. In that moment, there was no storyteller, no listener, only unity between light and shadow, between the human and the divine, between the story and what is real. The journey had ended, but the light did not. It continued to spread through words, through breath, through the eyes of everyone who heard this call. For awakening never stops with one soul. It ripples outward, touching countless hearts. If you are hearing this, be still for a moment. Breathe deeply. Feel the light within your heart. And if you sense something stirring, share it through your words, your kindness, your love. In that moment, you are not just hearing the story, you are becoming it. The dawn rose higher. The light filled the world. The young soul dissolved into the brilliance of the new day, no longer the traveler, but the light itself. And thus, the journey out of the matrix became the journey home, to the place every soul has always belonged. Grateful that you chose to spend these moments in the light of this story. If it touched your soul, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so the next whisper of light may find its way back to you.